Today's guest is a licensed attorney in Washington State and Arizona and has founded not one but two successful law firms in his career. In addition to that, he's founded an online legal directory and is currently the CEO of LawLytics, a web-based software aimed at putting you, the attorney, in control. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Dan Jaffe to the show. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you having me.
And did I say your last name right, by the way?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, good. I have had this happen on numerous occasions where I forget to ask, and then I get into the intro, and I'm like, oh, crap. I'm guessing. So that's great. Tell me. So welcome, by the way, once again. Tell me about what you're up to right now. I sort of like to start with carry my introduction a little bit further. Tell everybody the things that they should know about you, and then we'll sort of jump back into the past.
Sure. Okay, great. So currently I'm the CEO and one of two co-founders at a company called LawLytics. We started in San Francisco in 2012. And after about 2 years, right before we actually launched our first product, we moved operations to Tucson, Arizona, and that's where we're currently based. Our company is run on a software platform that we built specifically for lawyers. The idea is it empowers them to be able to take control over their marketing. We do a lot of support surrounding the software, which enables attorneys to really once they get the hang of it and understand marketing, be able to really control their own destiny rather than depending on SEO guys, pay-per-click, and other disposable types of advertising. And so, our mission is to not only empower attorneys by giving them the best software to be able to take control of their practice, but to give them the tools and the knowledge to be able to really help them get and stay ahead by building an asset that appreciates online. I like you said, I hold two law licenses, which are both currently on inactive status, so I don't have to do CLEs, and those are in Washington and Arizona. Cool.
And I'm sort of interested to hear more about your story because you were in Seattle and that's where I am now. So I think it's a lot. Well, it's always interesting when I can sort of visualize, your career, because I can imagine you going to the courthouse and things like that. So I'm interested in that. But before we even get there, I kind of want to go back farther because I'm always interested to know about sort of the entrepreneurial background of my guests. And what I mean by that is, as a kid, growing up, or did you always have sort of that startup bug, or was your family involved in that kind of stuff, or where did that seed get planted for you?
Sure. Yeah. So in third or fourth grade, I did a presentation. It was like a career presentation for the class, like a career fair type thing, called "Business in My Family." And I come from a long line of small business owners who've owned everything from convenience stores to men's shops to various consultancies and so forth. And so I grew up around that. During my teenage years, my stepfather owned a printing business in Seattle, and I watched as he not only ran that business and managed, I think, 40 to 50 employees at any one time, but got to hear him talk a lot about strategy, about execution and management. And so I kind of grew up around it, but I didn't go through college or law school thinking that I would start my own practice, or at least not right away, or start my own non-law business.
Okay. What was where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college?
I went to college at the University of Washington in Seattle, and then did law school at the University of Arizona.
Okay, great. Cool. And when you went to law school, what did you want to do? What did you think you wanted to do, right? I think it changes. So as you sort of progress, it changes. But what was the idea of law school? What did that mean for you?
The idea of law school when I first enrolled was that I didn't have to go get a job immediately, and medical school was something that no longer interested me. I grew up being told by the business owners in my family, especially the small business owners, that I should go become a doctor or become a lawyer because then you don't have to worry about the ups and downs of the economy. You have something that's recession-proof and so forth. And, I kind of entered law school having just the vaguest idea that it might be kind of fun to be a lawyer, especially a trial lawyer, but not really knowing exactly how to get there or how I wanted to do it. I thought about maybe being a prosecutor, thought about other types of government law, and it just kind of evolved during my law school career to the point where when I finished law school, not only was I sure that I wanted to start my own practice, but I was at least somewhat equipped to do so.
Okay, I'm interested. Did the stories or the experiences of your family members, did that sort of dissuade you from wanting to do your own thing, or was it just kind of not something that you were particularly interested in at that time in your life?
Growing up, I don't think I really had an appreciation for an understanding of money and how the economy worked. But what I did hear was the guidance from small business owners who did quite well for themselves, but who never got to take time off, who kind of brought their jobs home with them every night, that type of thing. Right. And back then, keep in mind this was when I was making my career decisions, it was the late 80s, early 90s to mid 90s, and back then, it was a different economy. The internet really hadn't taken hold, and doctors and lawyers, for example, were kind of at the top of the food chain. Not that they aren't in some respects now, but they were very much more so at the time. And so, the advice that I was always given was, go get that law degree or get that medical degree. You don't necessarily always have to use it, but it's something that you'll always have to fall back on, and we won't ever have to worry about feeding you. Right. That type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Great. What you mentioned that by the time you finished law school, you were sort of ready to do your own thing. Was there something that happened while you were in school to trigger that, or what sort of created that decision? I
was not the most cooperative law student. I didn't really enjoy the academics of law school very much. I didn't see a point in a lot of it. And therefore I didn't really put a whole lot of effort into excelling in that realm. I kind of saw the writing on the wall, how everybody that did well was being kind of groomed for a certain type of position or career path that I really wasn't that interested in. And it kind of happened by chance during the last year or so of law school. I had pretty much checked out as a 3L, was kind of coasting towards graduation, and stumbled upon the trial advocacy program at the University of Arizona. That really resonated with me. And I kind of started getting this idea that, well, hey, I could walk into a courtroom and maybe try a case someday, if not someday soon. And so I went through their trial advocacy program, both the basic and advanced levels, and then lucked into an internship at the Pima County Prosecutor's Office the last semester of law school. And that was a practicing internship. I can't remember. I get them confused now. One was Rule 9 and one was 3080, but I confuse Arizona and Washington State, but the idea was a law student could go into court and practice on a limited basis under the supervision of a practicing attorney. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I ended up doing, because the misdemeanor attorneys were so understaffed and overworked in that particular office. There was really an unlimited caseload for somebody, a third-year law school student that was available and willing to do so, to kind of take in and to come in and take over a caseload. So I tried a lot of misdemeanor bench trials, got to try DUI jury trial, and and really got a lot of exposure in court, not only talking to judges, pro se defendants, and defense attorneys. And that gave me the idea, well, I see what they're doing. It doesn't look that difficult from my perspective back then, not knowing what I didn't know, and thought, well, I could maybe do this. And so my job, my last semester of law school, was basically doing that internship, where I was there almost all day, every day, in court, and then my studying was basically looking at the limited number of resources that were available at the time about actually starting and then growing a law practice. I saw in your bio that you had mentioned stumbling upon Jay Funberg's book, which was, I think, the only book in the University of Arizona Law School library at the time that dealt with the subject. But I consumed it, and at the time I think there wasn't. If there was anything about the internet, I don't recall there being,
right.
But it answered the fundamental questions, and it gave me enough confidence to think, well, I could do this pretty much right out of law school.
Okay, awesome. So that happened, right? I mean, you get out of school, you sort of set up shop and hit the ground running?
Well, it took almost a year to actually hit the ground running, because I went to Washington State, took the bar up there, passed it. Shortly thereafter, met my wife, who's from Arizona. She was moving back to Arizona at the time, so I chased her back down here, got a job at the prosecutor's office while I was studying for the Arizona bar, and then exported her back to Seattle. It turned out to be a bad idea, because somebody that grows up in the sun, it's hard to get used to the Seattle weather.
Right.
But anyway, so collecting 2 bar licenses in the meantime, then I ended up back in Seattle and then started my practice there almost a year later.
Okay, and that was that like in the late 90s?
It was,
that happened?
Yeah. So I graduated in 98, and then I hung my shingle, and I want to say early 99.
Okay, and it was sort of, you sort of came into it at the particularly with the way that your technical, and when I say technical, I mean not legal, sort of your technical chops either were there or evolved, and you were kind of around at the wild west of the internet, right?
I was. So I got I had interned for a law firm that was at the time in what was then called the Columbia Center. I went from Columbia Center to Bank of America Tower. I'm not sure what it's called now, but you know the building I'm talking about.
Yep, it's back to Columbia Center.
Oh, it is? Okay. So
yep.
I was on, I think, the 32nd floor or something. They, Sternberg, Thompson, Oakrent, and Scher had had an extra room that they let me use after my internship when I decided to hang a shingle, where I did a certain amount of work every month to get the room, got used to the conference room, receptionists, and so forth, and so started practicing there. But the problem was the phone wasn't ringing, and so I started looking into how to make it ring, discovered the internet, and it was a natural for me to go into criminal defense because of my experience in the prosecutor's office. And so I started doing, appearance work for other attorneys to kind of scrape by. I did research and writing, and then in my spare time learned how to create, what would now look like a very primitive website. And back at the time, I'm sure you know John Fox.
Yes, definitely.
He, to my recollection, he's the only person that had a website up that I remember being up. There may have been 1 or 2 others that did DUI or criminal defense, but the competition on the web was for the most part non-existent, and at that point, me being very, very early on in my career, and John being a superstar at the time, we weren't even really competition with each other, because we applied to a different set of clients, and so it was just almost like the field was wide open, and it was just raining clients all of a sudden, because they came from Microsoft, they came from Amazon, they came from I want to say like My Lackey and other startups that were still blooming at the time in Seattle, and
right.
were on the internet. So
yeah.
It was like a case of the right place at the right time.
Right. Because the tech bubble was also going on at that time, right? So you had all kinds of techie people around, particularly in Seattle, right?
Absolutely, and there were all these very young, very wealthy Microsoft people. Microsoft was still, I think, their stock was still going up at the time. They were still giving out lots of options, and so you had people in their mid-20s getting DUIs that were driving, $100,000-$200,000 cars, and then looking for help on the internet.
Right. And you took advantage of that. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean you were in the right place at the right time is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I saw the opportunity and didn't know if it was going to work or not, but was blown away by how well it ended up working.
Right. And so that you had your firm here for a few years, right? So 2 or 3
I did,
years
or
so?
For about 3 years.
Okay. And then you made a move back to Arizona, right?
I did, yeah.
That time?
We, and 9/11 happened. We started reevaluating, where we wanted to be, stuff like that. My wife was, she was tolerant of the weather there, but certainly wasn't thriving. And I liked Arizona. Love Seattle, having grown up there. But it was, having already had the bar card active in Arizona, it was like the natural place for us to flee to the sun too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really takes one long winter here to really make you question your sanity, by the end of it in some way.
It does. Yeah. I remember, parking to go into Seattle Municipal Court, parking several blocks away I know it's changed since, but the parking garage was like way at the top of the hill, walking down the hill with my umbrella blowing inside out and being soaked by the time I got into court. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. Okay. So I'm interested. And I didn't even write this in my notes, but when you moved, did you sell your practice or did you just close it down, or what did you do? What did you do when that happened?
So when I moved, I had a lot of business systems as well as my marketing infrastructure set up, and there was definitely some value in that. And so I ended up, I don't know if selling it is the right word, but I ended up I guess for lack of a better way of putting it, selling it to an attorney that I had shared office space with.
Okay. So you whatever you did though, you turned it over for him or her.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Okay. And then you, I think it's fair to say that first venture was a successful one, right? And when you went to Arizona, was the plan always just to start up another firm and sort of just recreate what you, because, I don't know if people listening to the show believe it or not, or even if you believe it, but for me, I think a law firm, when you really boil it down, is just like any other service-based business that needs the right systems and processes in place and add in sort of fundamental business practices, and you can be successful. That's sort of my philosophy of the whole thing. And I don't know if you believe that or not, but you had already built one. So was it interesting or exciting for you to build another one when you went to Arizona?
Yeah, it was. In fact, I look back at the time of building both practices as kind of like a renaissance in my life. I enjoy building businesses, but to answer your original question, I did not actually go down to Arizona thinking that I was going to go right into practice. In fact, the sale, if you will, of my Seattle-based practice was supposed to be seed money to go and start LawLytics at that point. So I've had this idea for LawLytics in my mind for well over a decade, but when I got to Arizona and really started investigating, how much it would take, back then the technology would have taken many multiples of the amount of money that I got from selling that practice to build, because the technology wasn't there. And so it took really an additional 10 years for me to get there. And a friend that I had gone to law school with was just leaving a large firm job that he had gotten pretty much right out of law school. We had gotten together, and he was looking for a partner to hang a shingle, and he was very persuasive, and I ended up just kind of falling back into practicing law. Did the same thing in the Phoenix area that I had done in Seattle to build the practice, and really enjoyed pretty much all of it.
Right. And, okay, excellent. And I'm always these. It's funny when you're looking at something or thinking about something that always seems to pop up. I'm always curious about partnership relationships and the dynamics of a partnership and choosing a partner and sort of working through that. And I would love to just kind of hear your experience with it, and if you thought that you did or didn't do things that helped the partnership blossom or not. Well,
yeah. So I didn't have a great outcome with my partnership. And if you look at it from a dating analogy, I said yes on the first date. And
right.
I think going back, it seemed like a really good idea, and I probably wouldn't have done it any differently, given the tools that I already have, because it was one of those things that just seemed like a right fit. But and I see more at least small law firm partnerships break up than I see survive, and it's almost like. You see, and I'm sure you've seen it happen a lot in the Seattle ecosystem. The people kind of play musical partners, and I think it can be very costly financially and very draining emotionally. And so, I think you have to have if I were to, to counsel anybody on doing it, I would say, really make sure you know the person really well and do like some kind of work together arrangement before you actually like marry your finances and stuff, because it's a huge commitment.
Right. And did you, you have partners now, right?
Well, yeah. So I have a co-founder, and then we also have investors. In fact, some of our early customers liked our system so much they approached us and asked us to invest. And then we have institutional investors as well.
Okay, cool. With your co-founder, what was the? And we'll talk sort of all about LawLytics in a little bit, but I'm just curious on this partnership issue. Did you approach that, I guess, formation differently than with the Arizona law firm partner because of what you've done, because of that experience?
I don't know if it was because of that experience or because, I had just gained the perspective of having, roughly another decade or so of life experience under my belt and practical experience. And this was my second tech business, my first tech business. I ran for about 2 years, ended up building a DUI directory that ended up taking off so quickly that I had to make the decision, do I do that or do I practice law full time? Started getting acquisition offers from major internet companies after about 6 or so months and held it for almost 2 years before ultimately selling it. And so, the business experience that gave me, kind of gave me the, I think the tools to step back and do a little bit more of a systematic search. And so I had actually moved to San Francisco from Phoenix after selling that first tech business because I thought San Francisco was the optimal place to not only find the right technical co-founder, but to grow the business. And so I did many, many months of searching, interviewing, having coffees and lunches with potential, technical co-founders before being introduced to Derek. And then by the time we had our first conversation, we were introduced by a mutual friend. It took about a month or so for us to start working together, but I knew what I was looking for. I knew the skills. I knew the personality. I knew he was the right person at that point.
Okay, great. That's really interesting because the dynamics with partners is just something that I think takes a lot of finesse in some ways, and yeah, I think you're right. People kind of tend to rush into it. So I'm always interested to hear people's experiences with that.
Have you had law partners?
I do. I have one right now. When I started, I did not have one, and took a partner on a couple of years, almost 2 years ago. So it's been interesting. You know, there are some good things and some not great things about it, I would say. You know?
Yeah, well, when you're used to being in control, I mean, for me, that's one of the things, like, you know, it's always there's a give and take, and, you know, I know that I don't, well, at least with our partnership, there are weaknesses that I have, and there are weaknesses that he has, and, you know, we kind of complement each other very well in that way. In fact, there's no way that I could have built this without him, and you know, so there's a delicate balance, but I think you know, looking for those complements, I think I think that's key to during the search.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think what you talked about earlier is a perfect sort of segue into the next sort of, well, although the law firm and the legal directory, it sounds like sort of we're going on at the same time. I'm interested. Well, let me just, you were the guy that was smart enough to buy DUIattorney.com when it was available. Is that right?
Well, I wasn't the original owner.
Oh, you weren't. You bought it from someone.
I did, I don't remember how this opportunity materialized. Maybe it was divine intervention. I don't know. But at some point in probably the late 90s, maybe it was 2000, I was approached by somebody who wanted to sell it for $500, and I said yes immediately.
No way. That is crazy. That was probably a relatively great financial decision that you made at the time, right?
It turned out to be. I thought it would be worth every bit of the $500 I paid for it. I didn't know it would turn into what it turned into, though.
Right. Well, and to be fair, you created a lot of the value in the domain name after you got it. What I'm curious about so maybe just kind of explain to everyone what you did with it. You know, what happened to it and what it eventually became.
Well, it's got a long history, and some of that history is probably available if you go to the Internet Archives. In fact, it's funny to see what it was when it was, you know, my Seattle DUI defense firm practices website and how it evolved from there. Ultimately it ended up being my firm's primary website in Arizona, and it was bringing me, you know, a lot of cases, but I had other websites as well that were also bringing me cases. And a Seattle attorney who you probably know, Aaron Wolf.
Oh yeah.
Actually, we've been friends since childhood, and Aaron approached me and was looking for some ideas and help, to get his practice going a little bit more. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I could make this into a multi-state, portal or directory, if you will, and started doing it, you know, for him as kind of an experiment, and it took off. And within, you know, roughly 6 months or so, I had all the states built out and had waiting lists at some point. And I mean, in some states, 10 people deep to be listed in the directory. And so it was just one of those things. I think right place, right time, right idea. Certainly wasn't the only one doing it, but it just took off.
That's right. You know, what's funny is that I had a conversation with Aaron. This would have been a few years ago, just about we had lunch and just sort of talked about our businesses and exchanged ideas about what was working and wasn't working with sort of the marketing and business side. And we talked about this service, and I'd never connected the dots because I I didn't realize that, but that's cool. So you created. So what I'm really interested about your opinion on is in today's market. There are all kinds of legal directories, and I mean the possibilities are endless for where you can sort of list your information. Some are paid and some are not. What, to the person that's sort of listening to this, what is your philosophy on joining those directories and their effectiveness or reach or ability to do anything for you? What are your thoughts?
Well, so I like to make a bright line distinction between joining them and actually participating in them. And so, if I were coaching an attorney as to the best use of his or her time, I would say under no circumstances should you be answering questions on shared directories, because you're basically contributing to their infrastructure. You're driving business to resources that you don't own and control, and resources that also feature your competitors and will then charge you basically to sell you back content and traffic that you've created for them. That being said, there are certainly directories that are easy to get into, and most of them that are easy to get into and are valuable also happen to be free. Justia has some great products where you get listed on several different well-trafficked directories. The products that I'm talking about are free. Avo is another one that at least back when I was practicing resulted in a number of cases for me, but again, it was early on, and I was kind of an early adopter of it in Phoenix before the market was saturated.
Right.
But in terms of buying space on, any directory that cold calls attorneys, I would caution them because, not only is it, potentially a waste of money on an asset that ultimately is not contributing to something that they own and will continue to own in the future. But there are some directories, as I'm sure you're aware, you do well in the search engines, that actually can detract from your ability to rank well. And so, you really have to know what you're doing and assess the traffic. I've seen so many directories flat out lie about how much traffic they get, lead volume, that type of thing. And then there's this whole other animal of paying per lead, where you subscribe amongst a bunch of other attorneys, and you and 5 of your closest competitors all get the same lead at exactly the same time, and the potential client doesn't know that they're necessarily contacting you, and then it's kind of a scramble to see who gets there first. And to me, that puts the attorney in a really kind of compromised position to start out with.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I agree. I think your philosophy is spot on. And I will say, sort of to take what you were talking about into sort of like a real world example, and correct me if I'm wrong with what you're talking about, but the shared sort of answering questions on other people's platforms. I think Avo does a pretty good job of themselves of promoting sort of the Avo answers and answering questions there. And what I do, and what I have sort of suggested that people do, is I use Avo for their questions, for like content ideas. And then what I'll do is I'll go actually just to my website, and I will write a blog post answering, the sort of questions that pop up through Avo and through those other sites where questions are submitted.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Absolutely. And the way that I like to counsel attorneys is, think about it like this. If your potential client is sitting across your desk from you in your office, what questions are they asking you? They're asking those same questions of Google, of Avo, or whatever. And so, once you've kind of run out of things that you can think up independently, if you see what other real life people are asking on Avo or Yahoo Answers or whatever, I think it's brilliant to take the questions and make sure that there's a nice robust answer on your website.
Yeah, because what you hope is that people are typing those into the search engines, right? And then you'll show up as that sort of very closely related term, or they'll find you on the site or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. That's so you at some point then you got out of the firm, right? Was that several years ago or?
Yeah, so when I first started DUIattorney.com as a directory, it was late 2008, early 2009,
Okay.
and it was acquired in the last quarter of 2011. And so
Okay.
I think I tried my last case the summer of 2009. I think by the time I determined that I was going to wind my practice down, I think I had an active caseload of 35, 40 cases or so, and lots of cases in Phoenix go to trial, and so I think that probably meant working off another 5, 6, maybe even 7 trials before my caseload was down to nothing.
Right.
But I was working increasingly on the technology side.
Yeah, and by that time, by that time, had the tech kind of caught up to your idea as far as LawLytics goes, and it was time for you to pursue that?
Well, by the time I'd entertained several very good acquisition offers for DUIattorney.com and didn't accept any of them because, one, I thought I could continue to grow it larger and make more of it, and two, I wasn't satisfied that the acquiring companies that had approached me before were going to act in the best interest of the attorneys who were, some of them were very much depending on DUIattorney.com for their business, and then when the company that ultimately ended up acquiring it came along, I was at a point where I was either going to have to make substantial investments in it, start hiring more staff, and really focusing on growing it in an even bigger way, the way that Google was changing, or hand it off to a company that was already equipped with their infrastructure to do that. And that's what I felt I was doing at that time. So it was a good fit at the right time as far as I knew at that point. And then at that point I was like, okay, well, I've got the resources and now I've got the time to do whatever I want. Let's investigate whether it makes sense to build what turned out to be LawLytics. And after doing my due diligence, speccing it out, spending about 4 or 5 months doing that and doing a co-founder search, finding Derek Johnson, who's my co-founder, then I became convinced that not only was the technology there, but the market was there as well. Whereas the market wouldn't have been there before either, because the cloud was it was really not even a thing back when I first wanted to do it, and it was still kind of an early adopter thing even back in 2012. But the market's kind of grown into it.
Right, definitely. And we talked a little bit about the idea for LawLytics, but was it sort of born out of your own experiences with technology, or from seeing sort of other attorneys, in the field struggle or be duped? Where'd the idea come from for it?
It was really all of the above. I had some very bad experiences early on once I moved to Phoenix with SEO companies, and learned that really the only person that you can trust when they're talking about SEO is yourself. And if you as the attorney don't at least have a fairly good grounding in what the terminology means, there are so many people out there wanting to take advantage of you. I'm sure you get the cold calls every day.
Oh yeah.
That you're going to be susceptible to that, and most attorneys ultimately fall prey to that. I certainly was one of them early on, and so I wanted to create a system that was easy enough to use and understand that it demystified it for attorneys, so that attorneys wouldn't continue to get taken advantage of, because my generation of lawyers came in right at the tail end of the phone book being effective, and you heard people saying they were working for the phone book because they were spending $15,000-$20,000 a month and not getting the returns they were promised. And I think all those people, once the phone book started failing, became SEO salesmen, and so it's kind of this predatory ecosystem that I wanted to at least do my part to insulate attorneys from. And then, a lot of it was just talking with attorneys, seeing how difficult they found it to update their own websites. I mean, even as easy as some of the do-it-yourself systems are, they still have a pretty big learning curve, and if you don't understand where things go, it can get intimidating, confusing. You have design aspects, you have a lot of technical overhead that you may have to spend worrying about security, updating plugins, making sure that things are backed up, what happens if it gets hacked, those types of things. And so, we wanted to create an ecosystem for attorneys to be able to do the one thing that really drives business more than anything, which is create communication with clients and potential clients. And so that's what it is. And then there's all these technological layers and different things that they can do with it. But the basics were that because of the frustration and the bad experience that I had, I knew others were having that too, and I wanted to see what we could do to alleviate it.
Sure. How does the system work? Well, what I mean is, let's say I'm an attorney, listen to the show, might be interested in checking you out. How does it make it easier? What is the experience like from the attorney's perspective when they use your service?
Sure. So attorneys come to us, basically in two different states, either having a website already or not having a website. Usually when they come to us and they have a website, they're not satisfied with the performance, or they realize they're paying way more than they should. I mean, we get people that are paying a couple $1,000s a month for basic website maintenance.
Right. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that real quick. So what is sort of a good, what should people be paying? Like, what if they should be looking around? What's that price point in your opinion?
Well, it really depends on the services that they're getting. So you can't compare somebody that gives you 20,000 words of high quality content a month with somebody that says they're doing SEO, gives you one kind of BS report at the end of each month, and calls it good. But we do see people charging the same amount for those two different things. And then there's also a wide range of costs from do-it-yourself to full service. And I mean, there's do-it-yourself platforms out there that you can get for $1 a month or even for free, but it's very rare to see attorneys succeeding on those. And so I think the question is, what is the optimal amount to spend where you're going to get the best return on investment? And
yes.
And a lot of that depends on how much the attorney knows and how willing they are to participate. So our fees are $200 per month per website, and everything is taken care of for them, in terms of the technology. But what we don't do for that is we don't create any content for them. We also have a content creation department where we have in-house lawyers that write the content, in a way that's going to be legally, factually accurate and SEO friendly, as well as bar compliant, which I think is a big thing. But assuming that you don't get into that, we found that the $200 a month price point is a sweet spot, because it's typically about one billable hour for the average attorney. And
sure.
if an attorney were to attempt to do that themselves using some of the other self-service platforms, it's likely that most attorneys are going to spend more than an hour tinkering around every month with the stuff that we just take care of for them. And so we're like a technology partner.
Right. It's going to be way more, because what ends up happening is you just want to do something like, I want to move that box over, like an inch, and you'll spend a day on it.
Yep.
So there's definitely, I think, value in the service that you provide. And I agree with you. I think $200, that's a pretty good, sweet spot. I think I I know you know about this, but I can't believe how many times I've asked people about their situation and they're just paying like some crazy amount of money for no services. You know, they just throw out some sort of key, you know, like not keywords, but you know, terminology that really doesn't do anything for them. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah,
you know?
the salespeople in the what I like to call the SEO industry. It's it's really just kind of the online scam industry if you know, if we're really talking about it honestly. But the people that cold call attorneys, you know, they've realized, in my opinion, and this is from talking with a lot of them from an attorney's perspective, and then also talking with a lot of attorneys who have, you know, previously bought services from them. But these salespeople realize that if they throw out terminology that attorneys don't understand, attorneys don't necessarily like to say that they don't understand things, and if attorneys hear the same thing over and over again, like, for example, we're going to go out and get you a bunch of backlinks, which is, you know, one of the things that is often sold without any qualification of, well, how do you get those backlinks? Are they earned backlinks? Are they purchased from Russian porn sites? You know, where do they come from? But attorneys oftentimes, when they don't understand it, they're like, okay, this guy says he's going to get me business. He says he's going to get me to the top of Google. He may even say that he works for Google or with Google, which is what a lot of those scam artists say.
Yep.
And attorneys end up opening up their pocketbooks because they don't understand it, but they know that the people that either do understand it or are trusting somebody that's doing well for them are kicking their butts in the marketplace.
Right. Yeah, I think, you know, it is a complete scam, but I think I have a hard time feeling sympathy sometimes too for people that will not take the time to just take even an hour to just go and read about the sort of the current state of internet marketing, you know, because what we're talking about right now is pretty much widely known throughout the industry, you know, and to not educate yourself on something you're going to be spending a relatively big amount of money on is just not smart business, you know.
I couldn't agree with you more, and you know, unfortunately, you know, whether it's lack of time or just lack of interest, or that, you know, at least when I was in law school, what they were teaching us was, at least the take-home message, was that, you know, thinking about business is kind of beneath you. As a lawyer, you know, your highest calling is to love the law, practice law, serve your clients, and the attorneys that are still thinking that way exclusively, I'm not saying that's a bad way of thinking, but I think that the attorneys that ignore the business side of it, of which, you know, the internet is a huge part, do so at their own peril and really only have themselves to blame ultimately.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. The advice that you get to just go out there and be the best lawyer that you can be doesn't really get you a lot of clients, you know.
It doesn't when you've got, you know, 5, you know, BS Yelp reviews, some competitors saying bad things about you on Avvo that they won't remove, and you as the attorney don't have the tools to effectively combat it by creating your own narrative. You know, so you basically abdicated control of your professional destiny to those who both understand and are willing to go to whatever means necessary to elevate their practices at the expense of your own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, we're getting really close on time, but I wanted to sort of give you a chance to finish sort of the description of what LawLytics does, because I think it's important for people that find themselves going, hey, that's me, as we're having this conversation, to look into it and see if it's a good fit for them. But when people sign up, is there like how is the website built? You know, is there a questionnaire that are there templates? Like how does that process sort of go?
Sure. So when they sign up, we basically walk them through everything. We do a design consultation. There are a number of questions that we ask them. If they already have an established brand for their firm that is working for them, we work within that brand in terms of design, in terms of getting the content organized on their site. If they have an existing site that they like that just isn't performing well, we usually can make the site look similar, at least take the elements that they like. The way that LawLytics constructs sites, it's based on roughly 40 different pre-made layouts that have basically infinite customizability, and so it's turnkey when somebody signs up. Whether they're starting a new site from scratch, in which case we can have their site built and ready to launch, typically within about 2 weeks, or whether they're migrating it from another platform, whether it's one of our competitors or a do-it-yourself platform, or a piece of a website within a larger firm. If they're breaking off that was kind of their niche practice, we can import all of that for them. So there's no initial effort on their part until the site is pretty much ready to launch. They get to see it during the build-out process and have input on how it's built, and we work with them to make sure that by the time we launch it, they love what they have. We do a mobile-first design, and so everything is responsive design, and it's built for the ever-increasing number of visitors that are going to come in from a mobile device rather than a desktop or a laptop. And then once we get their site launched for them, then we start the training process. And so, typically we'll do some group trainings with them. We do an unlimited amount of one-on-one training and coaching. And the idea is in the first several months to really take them by the hand and empower them to be able to use the system to create whatever their practice of their dreams is. Whether that's dominating a niche market in a certain area, whether that's having a statewide general practice and stuff, we will help them get there through their own effort. And then and by their own effort, I mean them writing the content. We believe that the best person to write the content about a law firm is the attorney, but we offer a second best option for them, which was kind of born out of necessity. So we have a writing department, and we can create initial content for the site to be launched with. We can do ongoing monthly blogging for them, and then we have some very high-end clients that we are working on creating either very robust local or regional websites, or in some cases even national websites for firms that have a very niche area that touches really anywhere that law can be practiced. And so we really, it depends on how busy the attorney is. Some people start with us, do the do-it-yourself thing where they're writing their own content, get so busy that they can't afford the time to keep writing, and then engage us to do writing for them after that. And that's really how the writing part of LawLytics was born, because we didn't want to let the success that they're having with our methods and our system end up driving them to one of our competitors. And so we ended up doing the writing program. And so it's just a matter of LawLytics is for an attorney that actually wants to have at least some level of awareness and participation in their marketing, rather than just abdicating it all.
Right. Excellent description, and I would encourage everyone to go check it out, because it's there's good information on there. No matter what you decide to do, quite frankly, it's a great place to go and take a look at. All right. With that being said, though, we are pretty much at the time. Are you ready for the lightning round before we go?
Sure. Yeah, I forgot about the lightning round. I am ready, though. Okay,
we'll go quick. First question is: do you have a morning routine?
Yes, I do.
What do you do?
I get up about 5:30, and I typically either work out or on alternating days go for a run.
Okay, cool. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Oh boy, that's a hard one. I guess it's when people show you who they are, believe them.
Okay, that's great. What is something that's working for you right now?
Creating systems. We like any growing business, we need to create systems so that everybody gets the same thing every time. Everybody on our team is on the same page. And so right now, I've been very much immersed in creating systems. Not just for our customers, but for our staff as well.
Excellent. What you can only recommend one book to someone? What book?
Oh boy. I've read so many books recently, I can't say that I have an absolute favorite right now. The most recent book that I've been reading, which I think is excellent, is called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right. It's a great book for startup tech companies, but I think it also is a great book for lawyers. Another one that kind of is maybe a little bit more dated, but that really helped me was the E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. Okay, tell me about one habit that's helped you achieve success.
Well, I like to think ahead. I like to try to spend anyways as much time thinking as I do acting and reacting. And sometimes it's difficult when especially in like a busy law practice, because you very much have to react to what is happening with the courts and with your clients. But especially for attorneys, to be able to step back and create that like sacred space where you have some uninterrupted time to really think about where you're going with your business, that's really helped me.
Excellent. Yep, I couldn't agree more. What is the one question I didn't ask you that I should have?
I know this is a speed round. I was supposed to answer quick. But
Said another way, what's one thing that you would like to talk about that we didn't get a chance to?
Oh, I mean, we covered everything pretty thoroughly. I mean, normally I would say, please give me a chance to plug LawLytics. More I see how attorneys succeed and thrive on it, but you've already given me the chance to do that, and I worked it in again now. So that would have been it, really. Perfect.
And then one parting piece of advice and how people can find you.
Website is the best way. LawLytics, LawLytics.com. If you want a consultation, we can review what you have and your goals and even just give you advice on starting your law firm. I do that, quite a bit. So there's a form on there to schedule a consultation, and especially if it's talking about starting and building a law practice, I'm always happy to get involved with that at any time.
Cool. Okay. That was awesome. I think we're done, but I really appreciate your time and your giving. I mean, it's always interesting. I love it when people come here and they really sort of just open up and tell stories, talk about things that have worked and haven't worked for them. And you definitely shared a lot of experiences today, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been a great conversation, and I come to Seattle a couple times a year to visit families, so we'll have to get together when I do.
Definitely, let me know. We'll grab a drink or whatever, coffee, doesn't matter.
Sounds good. Yeah, there's plenty of coffee in Seattle.
Definitely.
All right, well, sounds good. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Lawyering podcast. For more great action-packed advice and information, visit theartoflawyering.com.